Hello and welcome to our webinar on the problem with rent collection. I'm Liz Wilson, I'm the Head of Marketing here at Ascendex, and I'm also joined by James O'Hare, who's the General Manager of Ascendex for UK and Ireland. Today we're going to be looking at how social housing providers can collect higher levels of rent, particularly in the face of rising debt levels and challenging reduced resources. So without further ado, what we're going to cover off today, we're going to look at the current issues faced when collecting rent, so what isn't working terribly effectively today, why we think social housing providers should be looking at a mobile focused collection strategy, how societal attitudes are changing to mobile. And then we will have a look at Ascendex's proposition for this, which is a service called Mobile Collections, why it's effective, what are the features, what are the payment options available, who it's intended for and how it works. And of course, we don't expect you to take our word for that it's effective. We will also give you some statistics on how effective it has been for other social housing providers. So the first challenge we're going to look at is around collections via outbound calls. Now, part of the challenge is as many as 86% of calls from businesses are ignored by consumers. That's a big hurdle to overcome in the first place. The other key issue, of course, is that they're very labour intensive. You have to have people picking up the phone and making telephone calls, so they are expensive. But you do need a flexible arrangement these days. You do need to be able to be responsive to changing resident circumstances. And so phone calls are responsive to that, but there are other issues around phone calls, again, around that resource intensity and their reach that make phone calls not potentially the right solution here. And similarly, letters. So letters, of course, are lower cost than making a phone call, but that point around responsiveness, that point around being adaptive to residents' changing needs, I mean, clearly a letter can't do that. They do tend to have a poor conversion rate, as in a response rate. You're looking at sort of 5.1 from a letter as opposed to a 32% response rate to an SMS. There's a heck of a lot of spam that comes through the door. Well, as you know yourself, you'll get flyers and stuff through the door that you didn't request, which can indeed make your messages more easy to ignore. And letters too are pretty expensive compared to a digital-based solution as well. And the other issue with a non-digital solution, such as letters, is that they are largely untraceable. It's really difficult to know, has somebody received it, has somebody read it, is someone intending to take action? Whereas you can learn an awful lot about people if you conduct these same actions through a digital channel.
And the next two challenges we're going to cover, both is on the same subject of rising rent arrears, but for different reasons. So the first one we're going to look at is challenge 2, so the rising levels of debt due to universal credit and the introduction of universal credit over the last 3 or 4 years. So you can see that from Inside Housing and the BBC News, since the introduction of universal credit, it is widely accepted that, or at least the opinion is widely accepted that universal credit is to blame for soaring rent arrears. And what that means is that the residents are then under further stress. And so therefore, providers who take an empathetic approach to rent collection and considers individuals' unique personal circumstances, as well as being able to calculate their own affordability, and also something where it is a self-serve platform, provides as it states in bullet point 3 there, providing a handoff to customer service platforms if they have any questions. And of course, the challenge 3 is the second reason for those rising debt levels is to do with the pandemic. So with the deteriorating economic situation, with the introduction of furlough, and also with the rising levels of job losses, this is further putting huge amounts of pressure on the levels of arrears that residents are actually experiencing. And so, as it states here again, it's very, very important that providers understand that a resident experiencing financial difficulty as a result of the pandemic needs to be treated sensitively, and using payment holidays if required. The automated support platforms for the resident have to be provided, so again they can self-cure in a frictionless manner. And also you then as housing providers can then reduce demand on those in-house resources as a result of those residents experiencing difficulty by introducing something much more cost effective. So how can social housing providers address these challenges? Now, we feel with our work in local authorities and housing associations that mobile focused strategies offer a real solution to the challenges that we've discussed. And in particular, in a real solution in providing rent collection efficiency. And so we believe that using mobile first communication for rent collection, it will remove the need for that highly resource intensive internal cost to your organisations. For the resident themselves, the payment facilities are available at any time. It reduces the cost to collect arrears in terms of the reduction of paper reminders, but also the customer experience around providing an answer to the rent arrears question is going to be exponentially increased, because the solution, which will be self-serve, it can be used at any time. It is completely traceable for your organisation as well, and it will be highly effective and provide much higher customer satisfaction as a result.
So I want to touch on now the changing attitudes to how we make payments as a society, because we're all, James and I are clearly very enthused about moving to a digital mobile first strategy, but we're not alone in this. Society as a whole is taking this step forward. And what we can see on this screen is that 46% of people, indeed residents, prefer to use their mobile device for making payments. And 62% of smartphone owners have used their mobile device to make a payment in the last 6 months. And moreover, as millennials, which were people born in 1982 to about 1995, I think, those are the sort of people who will be entering into social housing over the next few years if they're not already. And millennials are particularly digitally savvy. And so you can fully expect them, millennials and your future tenants will be using mobile payment platforms. And mobile payment platforms are exploding. 328% growth year on year of payments through mobile payment platforms. So what we're trying to elaborate on here is the fact that while, as I say, we think this is a good idea, we're responding to society here. We're not leading society. Society is already saying we want to make payments via mobile. And further, some further elements that are pushing mobile focused strategies, not least, of course, COVID-19. We can't have face-to-face conversations with people. So conversations that take place digitally are safer, and people are getting more used to them as well. So, of course, we all hope that in some time in the near future, we won't be in this situation anymore. But there's a lot of analysts who believe that our behaviours have changed permanently. So it's, for example, people who have moved to shopping online are expected to stay shopping online even when the high street stores are open again. So the pandemic changed how we interact with businesses, and a lot of analysts believe that behaviour will now stick. Of course, similarly, as during the pandemic, when you haven't been able to see your friends and family, you've also been connecting with them over mobile technology as well, with your Zooms and your Google Hangout and your WhatsApp and all of that good stuff. And again, people are getting very, very accustomed to communicating via digital means. Rather alarmingly, the average smartphone user in the UK spends 3 hours, 15 minutes on their phone every single day. So if you want to engage with people on a platform, it should be the platform where they spend most of their time anyway, and that is their mobile. You check your phone on average 58 times a day. I think I'm worse. I think mine's more double that. I have to sort of physically remove it from myself. But that's the average statistic right there. And again, to that point, if you want to engage with people, you need to be where they are, and they are looking at their phones. And what we've also found is that 66% of consumers in general, of whom some will be your residents, are already interacting with businesses and organisations through messaging applications such as WhatsApp, such as text messaging. The chart on the right-hand side, this is just to show that the smartphone ownership in the UK is almost 100% in most demographics. So the average age of a person in social housing is 52. I don't know if you can see it that well on the screen, but that's the pale grey bar on this chart. It would be the pale grey bar, of course. But that's 95% smartphone ownership in that demographic. So if you're concerned perhaps that your residents won't have access to the mobile technology that will allow them to do this, I think this statistics indicates that a great deal of them will have access to that technology and will be able to engage with you on a smartphone. So this is a point at which we move and have a look at the Ascendex specific solution to this. We call this mobile collections. And this builds on everything we've all talked about already, which is to say, we're looking for a new way to collect payments and a flexible means of setting up payments by specifically targeting people's mobile devices, with a great emphasis on self-serve. So somebody can engage with the message that you send around setting up a new repayment plan at their own convenience. That might be in the evening, it might be in the morning, it might be in the middle of the day, but it's at their convenience. The way this works is quite simple. Your resident would receive an invitation to take your mobile journey, your mobile collections journey, through any text-based channel. So you could send them a text. We would recommend that because text is ubiquitous and has a really high open rate. But you could also use things like WhatsApp and email to send that message as well. When they click on that link, they're taken through to a fully branded environment, which we're going to show you some examples of that in just a moment. And through there, they can complete some simple identity verifications and then set up payment plans to help themselves. So we're not just in the business of saying you must make a payment now. We've already discussed the fact that a lot of people are in arrears through no fault of their own. Some people will be in arrears for the first time in their lives. We need to be sensitive to that. I mean, legally, you need to be sensitive to this right now. There are quite a few rules around what you can do. And we know that, for example, that right now you couldn't evict a tenant, or it's very difficult to evict a tenant for non-payment of rent. So and that is a last step, right? That would always be an absolute last resort. Far better to get a payment plan going, better to get them out of the routine of non-payment with a payment, even if it's not the full amount. So the great thing about a mobile collection suite is that you can allow them within your parameters to set up a repayment plan of their own value, make a promise to pay, or indeed connect with you through the same app. And then they would get a message to say that your payment had been received. So it's a good positive reinforcement message. So this mobile collections strategy, it's not new. This is a proposition that we've had for several years and indeed has been award-winning. This won the Queen's Award for Enterprise for Innovation in 2020, of which I was particularly proud. But here's just some few statistics specifically through the social housing sector. So in this particular instance, nearly over 51,000 messages were sent. Of those, 90% were delivered. So this is just due to people not necessarily having the most up-to-date mobile numbers or perhaps having typos in address fields. But if you've got clean data, you can expect a really high delivery rate. Of the residents who received the SMS, the people who then went on to open the mobile collections environment was 32%. So that was a 32% engagement rate, which is really strong. Of that 32%, the people who went on to make a payment was 45%. So that's incredible. And the total amount collected was over £800,000. Now, these were people who are not responding to the traditional means of driving payments. So when you consider from that 51,000, 13% of that went on to make a payment, that's a really powerful statistic if the current means that you're using are just not getting through. You're just not changing people's behaviour.
So let's bring this to life for everybody in terms of what these mobile collection solutions actually look like. So we're going to take you through a series of slides now, which brings to life and shows you some screenshots on what a typical journey could look like for a resident, which is self-curing their own rent arrears. So imagine that the particular resident in question has received an SMS which says your rent arrears is due. They have a link which is personalized to them. They open up that particular link, which uses the native browser on their smartphone, so whether that is Apple or Android, and this is what they could see. As you can see, it's fully branded with our mock housing provider Silverline, and you can see here we've got a particular stage around identity verification and validation. So that's really important. We understand that some of the information is going to be sensitive, some of the information is going to be which you would only share with the resident in question. So we have to verify they are who they say they are, and we can do that through a different means. And what's quite critical throughout whole of this examples we're going to show you is that many of these things are configurable. And so, for example, on the far right hand side, when we're providing the opportunity for the residents who decide what they're going to do next, this panel here can be completely configurable to what your housing association would like to show. Or and so if, for example, you didn't want to show a payment holiday because you didn't want to offer that option, we can configure the system to remove that as well. But as you can see here, it would ask for a reference number or a date of birth or a postcode. Again, that can be configurable. It could be one, it could be all three, it could be two or three, and so on and so forth. And so moving on to the next page, where you can actually see what does it look like for a housing actual payment being made. So you can see that actually making a payment, we'll be able to provide all the information on screen, which is the far left there, all the information on screen that the resident would need to make a payment. And also then in terms of their communication, they can choose whether they receive that by SMS or email. You've got different methods of payment, which we've got integrated, which we'll show in a moment, but also we've then got the ability for someone to enter their card payment there and then, or as it says on screen too, their payment via a card that they've already got pre-registered. So we do have a really rich interactive service, which means that this is stopping a phone call coming into your housing organisation when somebody gets stuck. We're providing as much information as possible to allow them to self-cure. And so moving on to the next example, we can actually also give the opportunity for the resident to set up a repayment plan. And again, all of these options are completely configurable. You can see here that what we're trying to do with mobile collections is offer the debtor the chance to completely self-cure their own debt, which means that should they want to set up a payment plan, they can choose how much they're going to pay, weekly, fortnightly, 4 weekly or monthly, what that payment type is, the value of that payment, and also whether they're going to be making it via a card or a debit card. That then plays back to that resident what that plan then looks like and giving dates and times, and then we can also then have, coming off of that, automatically confirmation of reminders going through to SMS that when they've got their payment on that next date, payment 2 or payment 3, they're going to receive a reminder for them to do that. And then they can go back into their portal, back into it to actually edit it and change it should they need to. So we've got various payment providers available. So we've got dozens, if not hundreds, of different payment providers. So we can ensure that whatever merchant bank that you would use as a part of your business, that we can also match up that to. And then we have got things like direct debit set up. So we've got the ability, which is fully compliant, the ability for the resident to set up their own direct debit, again, all from a self-serve perspective. Now, this is a really interesting part of the solution that we have available. So income and expenditure, of course, is a huge part of benefits assessment, and it's also around what can the resident pay if they are in debt. Now, the typical income and expenditure assessment would usually take place over the phone or via a long form. We've been able to introduce the principles of income and expenditure within the mobile collection solution, meaning that, again, the resident can self-serve and answer their oof questions. And so they're able to put in all of the different elements of the income and expenditure part of that assessment, which is fully compliant with the financial assessment principles laid down by the FCA. And also we can make a further enhancement with a integration with open banking, which is a new solution which allows this information to be pre-populated with the permission of the resident saying, yes, we approve using open banking to ensure that this is a instantaneous service rather than what is a 4 or 5 minute job to introduce all of this information. With open banking, you're able to do that instantly. And of course, this is very different to a phone call perhaps that you would have to go through your income and expenditure, where that could last from 30 minutes to 50 minutes on average. And of course, what you would want to do is provide the ability for the resident to get in touch in the way that you would like them to get in touch. And again, this is all about trying to manage the communication coming in and out of your organization. So again, completely configurable. You could offer having a secure chat. So we've got a solution which links through to a chat functionality where you can have a message chat exchange with the resident, either that being a call, requesting a call. They can actually view any of the digital letters that might be delivered to them, whether they're in financial hardship. So that would give them the ability to seek help and get advice, and also things like requesting payment holidays. Again, you can see that we're starting a secure chat by SMS, confirming things whether they would agree to the payment extension, and again, all playing back exactly what is available to the debtor themselves. And then finally, a really important part of what we have termed over the last few months working in the private sector and the public sector is around financial well-being and providing the ability to ensure that we're giving ethical collection solutions. And so this financial well-being element to our solution allows us to really understand and be able to provide an update to the resident to how quickly their debt can be cured, meaning that they're much more likely to adhere to a payment plan and also then become debt free, which is essentially what all of the financial services sort of industry should be aiming for, especially in the vulnerable debtor sort of area. We don't want to make their debt worse, and so being able to provide them with incentives, showing them that they're potentially going to be debt free in a period of time, that allows us to encourage that.
So we do work with over 100 social housing organisations across the UK, and Cadwin is one that's working particularly with us on a project for mobile collections. Cadwin are looking for something that could manage their resources better, lower their costs, and also deliver a more convenient way for residents. And I hope, having seen what we've put together today, that you would agree with Cadwin that the mobile collection strategy was going to do exactly that. So what have we touched on today? We've looked at the issues currently faced when collecting rent today, and we really appreciate the challenge that social housing providers face. We've looked at why societal changes are driving people towards mobile-focused collection strategies. And then we've had a good long look at what are mobile collections, the features of those, and who can use them and how they work. And so in terms of finding out more, if this has piqued your interest, and we hope it has, mobile payments can be quickly implemented, typically within 6 to 8 weeks. So this is something you could get going with even before the pandemic is officially over. We do absolutely take the time to understand your business. As I say, we do work with over 100 local authorities and social housing providers, and we have specialist account managers who have a lot of experience and themselves come from public sector backgrounds. We've got a phenomenal amount of experience in our team and in our platforms that we can bring to help you solve these challenges. We're also experts, and we haven't touched on it too much today, but we're also experts in combining communication channels in order to get that result. So, we've done some really interesting work like Empower, where we've combined email, voice calls, and text messages, for example, and used a intelligent messaging system which says engage this channel. Fantastic. We'll kind of leave them alone and we'll set that as the default channel that we communicate with them going forward. But if they ignored that, let's try a different channel, or let's try a different message. And all of that can be completely automated, so that so a system is just using some intelligent inputs to change the way it communicates with residents in order to get a result. So we do offer completely bespoke solutions. You can see from the example as well, we have an awful lot of this stuff that's already built as well. So if there's something you haven't seen, then please speak to us. And I think probably most critically of all is that we are at the forefront of changes in messaging technology. It's our job to make sure that we keep you ahead of developments in this area. So, we've seen that attitudes to mobile payments are changing, and that, well, we all know how ubiquitous it is to have a smartphone on your person at any given time. But when the next communication revolution happens, Ascendex will be there, and Ascendex will guide you through that.
So thank you to everyone who has attended this webinar. We hope you found it interesting. As we say, if you want to find out more, we've got some call to action details there. So we've got our telephone number and our email address. Please do get in touch. As I say, we're working with local authorities in the housing sector quite deeply at the moment with some really exciting projects. So if you would like to find more, please do get in touch.